I am live. So, hello. It's a great pleasure to be with you. You know, guys, I don't get the opportunity to tell you enough how you, our Patreons, are really helping us, and I want to give more back to you. Clearly, this has been a bit of a, what would we say, somewhat tough year. This last year, I've been, as we say in the UK, I've been a stressed little bunny. And I had all these great plans on what I was going to do, like how are we going to work with Patreon or how are we going to do that? And you get this bunny in the headlights type situation and you don't move forward with anything. So let me go through. I'm being told the audio is fine. That's great. Image quality is terrible. Well, it looks very good from here. And then I need to start looking at square. So I've got my my right-hand woman, Serene, is going to be sending me some questions. Serene, if you could send me some questions through on Patreon so I don't have too much to think about. And then we'll go through of okay, I can see a question here to get us going. There's one from Les. Yeah. What factors can contribute to the development of tooth crowding in the lower teeth, but not in the upper teeth? Well, generally, there's a coordination between the upper and lower jaws. Okay. So now if we assume that the upper and lower teeth are in their correct orientation. So let's take a set of models. So if we've got a set of teeth like this, there we go. Here's something I prepared earlier. Here's a normal set of teeth. Well, they don't have the wisdom teeth, do they? So it's not really normal. If the bottom jaw is set back like that, then the top teeth can collapse back. The front teeth can collapse back to meet the bow teeth. They don't always. It depends clearly where the tongue's going to be most of the time. If the bottom teeth are forward, then the top teeth can the bottom teeth can collapse back. Again, it depends where the tongue is. I see both. I sometimes see them, it literally staying like that with the bottom teeth set forwards, completely aligned. And sometimes you see them leaning back a little bit. Sometimes they lean back completely. It's going to be the posture and function of the tongue, the balance zone that determine that. Now, if the top and bottom teeth are in their sort of correct alignment, that means they're it's a bit like a cogs in an engine. It's in a gearbox. So if the cogs are correctly placed in an engine, then they can't slip backwards and forwards, and you have the lower molars ahead of the upper molars. All lower molars are the first cog, the head cog. So the lower is the head cog and the uppers are the behind cog. But as you go round the front, because all the upper front teeth are all wider than the lower front teeth, the upper cog can be behind on both sides and the lower teeth is on front on both sides, and it balances out. Now, what you can often get in the upper front teeth is what's called a Bolton discrepancy. So tooth number 2 in the upper, this one here, the one I'm slightly fair upper tooth, it's the most common tooth in that area to be missing or diminutive. So sometimes it can be very small. It can, we refer to as a concept called a peg-shaped lateral. So often those front teeth can be very small, and because they're small, then the bottom front teeth can crowd up. However, the bottom front teeth seem to crowd up quite a lot anyway, regardlessly. And often what I think the fact I see, and the bottom front teeth can slip back like this. So the lower front teeth drop back, even though all the side teeth are effectively working in function, are working correctly locked in their cog relationship. Now, it seems to be that a lot of people are swallowing like this. And I'm really interested in this. When I look around, we talk about the atrophic upper lip. So that's the upper lip that does nothing. A lot of people have the upper lip does absolutely nothing, while the lower lip has to make up for all of the action of the upper lip. Sounds strange. So the upper lip is not doing anything, and the lower lip then has to make up. So when I look at someone's face, I can sometimes imagine where the tongue is. Now, people who have the tongues really high have great cheekbones. People have the tongues, as the tongue gets lower and lower and lower into this position, then often they will have one of two things. If they're tongue splinting, so they're biting on the tongue, actively making some effort on it to reciprocate the tongue between tooth swallow, which they'll have if the tongue's low, then they don't necessarily have big cheek muscles because they're using their biting muscles to bite on the sides of the tongue and reciprocate that. They will have big scalloping marks on the side of the tongue. Maybe, though, their tongue, they're not doing a lot of tongue splinting. The tongue's going between, and they're using the buccinator and the lower bellies of Bicularis oris. So you've got this muscle here and this muscle here. And I see a lot of people with massive, muscles Arnold Schwarzenegger would be proud of in their lower lip. And of course, this can cause the lip to avert. It's not the whole picture because you've got the mentalis as well. But you're building up muscle mass in this area. So first you've got the added muscle mass, and then that's going to push back as much as it's extending forwards, like icebergs, but not quite an iceberg because it's a 50-50, not like a bigger amount underneath. So you've got the physical presence of that lip. You've also got when you swallow. So many people are using that lip because as the tongue drops down, often, and people are leaving their lips apart, well, the lower lip doesn't have to do anything. The tongue's here, and because it's not going up on the roof of the mouth, where's it going to go in its action when you swallow? Ideally, it's going on the roof of the mouth, pushing up on that roof of the mouth, lift those cheekbones every time you swallow. But for most people, even often for me, it doesn't. Watch me. I frequently swallow and I'll make a little swallow like that. So my tongue's just dropping down a little bit too much. And I then use that lower lip. And the more I'm using that lower lip, the bigger it gets, but also it's contracting backwards. Both things that are going to crowd up those lower incisors. All right. I hope that helps on the lower incisors. My worry then, this one, is a lot of people they get those lower incisors aligned by moving them forwards with orthodontics. And then they have a retainer wire placed behind those lower incisors. Well, this retainer wire, or any form of retainer, even if it's a nighttime Invisalign light retainer or Hawley light retainer, whatever retention system you've got, if you're going to hold your lower front teeth forwards and then often in alignment, then you're holding that out of the balance zone. And I've seen a couple of cases of gross gum loss on these front teeth. They've lost a lot of gum on those lower front teeth. And it's because the teeth are being held forward outside their balance zone. And of course, you can hold the tooth there with a retainer, but you can't hold the bone there. So the bone then goes back to its balance zone. And, well, you've got teeth with less bone, less support. You only have so much support. And when you run out of that, your teeth fall out. That's where it goes. All right, so I'm going to look sideways now at the next question selected because I can't talk and answer questions at the same time. So this, I presume, is from Nina. Yes, I have. I have two very different ones. First, when is the earliest Mr. Mew would recommend orthodontic expansion with bioblocks? Okay, well, this is a really interesting question. I think that as a general rule, I'm not going to treat or try to pontificate, sort of give my opinion about people younger than 4. I'm still so many questions that I really haven't answered in my own mind about, these younger people, because I see people being born in, I'm wondering how did they get to look like that? And then they seem to get a little bit better. And I see people being born getting worse. And there's a lots of things that I really want to analyze a bit more before I start opening my big mouth and saying I think I know something. It's really important not to do and say that. As a general rule, if someone arrives to me at 4 years old and they've got problems such as a lack of space. Now, okay, let's go sideways. My grandfather by Harold Chapman. Now, I would love to try and look up some of the old work of Harold Chapman. So he taught my grandfather. So he is long dead. He was considered the guy that got orthodontics to be scientific. So he pushed orthodontics into becoming a science in the UK. And the British Orthodontic Society has a Harold Chapman Prize because of that, because he's a respected guy. You know, he did a lot for orthodontics. Now, he said, and this is what he said to my grandfather, or at least what my father has said to me, that if you didn't have space for a half crown between all of the upper incisors, then you were going to have problems in the future. Now, when we mean the upper incisors, that would be here, 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 and here. I believe either side as well, although they mentioned up between. So that would be 5 places. And a half crown was about 2 millimeters. So you're talking about 10 millimeters of space in this area. Now, that's a lot of space. And when Harold Chapman was saying this to my grandfather, you get the impression that this was what most people had, because it was really just the rich and wealthy and the unlucky who didn't have that much, were getting orthodontic therapy. So I presume who didn't have that much space at, I think it was saying sort of 4 to 6 years old, around 5 years old, that this, you could make this decision. So Harold Chapman was saying at 5 years old, if you didn't have 10 millimeters of spare space around your upper incisors, you were likely to have problems in the future. Now, I don't think I've ever seen someone with that much space between their upper front teeth. So I could deduce from Harold Chapman's advice that everyone at 5 years old needs treatment. Now, that is kind of what I'm saying. When you kind of look at the evidence as I see it and what's happening, you know, I walk down the street, everyone's down to one. So we could argue that everyone could do with this. And what Harold Chapman would do is from the age of 4, he would have a burst of expansion. And the expansion would open at, well, I would recommend the semi-rapid rate. And I would recommend a stage 1 BioBlock appliance. Ooh, I haven't got one in front of me. I'll remember to have that next time. And the stage 1 BioBlock appliance, it's a great appliance. And I would do about 3 to 4 months of expansion. I would do 3 to 4 months of full-time retention. I'd do 3 to 4 months of nighttime only retention and then let go. So something, you know, you're talking about 9 months to 12 months of therapy. When I do the widening, I would widen right up to the edge. So the upper teeth should sort of overlap the lower teeth. So they go around all the way around there with your upper teeth overlapping. So upper overlapping like that at the front, and they're overlapping like this on the right side and like this on the left side. So what you would do, you would widen. So you don't want the teeth to fall into scissor bite. So you want to widen right the way round so that the bottom jaw isn't falling up into the top jaw, because then you've gone to one of those points where you're unlikely to recover. I'd widen that in 3 to 4 months of expansion. If you go the semi-rapid and count the turns each time the patient comes in the office. Well, clearly I'm talking to patients here, not doctors, but that's what I would advise to a doctor, to actually physically count back each and every turn every time they see you to make certain the right number of turns were done. I'd also push the upper incisors forward, because remember, and this is what I get, everyone goes expansion. They're all talking about transverse expansion. Very few people are talking about sagittal expansion. So what I would also do is I would also push the upper front teeth forwards and then create a great big space between tooth number 2 and tooth number 3. Because how often do we get impacted canines? And you get a really big space there. I personally feel, and we've even published on this, that this can really reduce the chance of impacted canines. So in a way, I mean, I've done that to both my kids and been very successful for both of them. The bottom, and often you find the mandible will just move forward to match. Again, this is, if you inside, if we didn't have knives and we had to cut all our food like this, we wouldn't see people. I don't think we would see as many people who are too far forward or too far, class 3 or class 2. Because if you're getting that all the time you're eating, what's going to change? Okay, I think that's summed it up. So for going back to when the earliest Mr. Mew would recommend orthotropic expansion with bar blocks, 4 years old. And I hope I'm not sounding like I'm over recommending treatment, but from what I've experienced, I think most kids would probably benefit from a burst of expansion then. And I think that would be really, really helpful. They're so mobile, they're so malleable, and really work on lip taping, chewing. That's what you're only giving someone the opportunity to change. There's no magic here. I hope you've all got that. I don't have any fairy dust. If I did, I'd be selling it. Right. Okay. So the next one down. Okay. All right. This is a question from Will. And we talked about this one. We selected 1 or 2 questions in advance. And Will, this is a great question. You know what's happening. So I'll read it out loud. Without enough space in the airway, you are unable to get the posterior third root of the tongue on the soft palate for any longer than short periods of breath holds. Thus, you simply cannot generate enough consistent force over the course of a day to cause that maxilla to begin to upswing, or even experience the short-term muscular tissue-based benefits of the airway expanding and being supported by the tongue. You know what's happening here, sir. Additionally, you won't even develop enough of an awareness and strength in the back third of the tongue due to the lack of time it spends in this position. Completely normal people on YouTube have become inspired by free divers and thus they develop the ability to breath hold for many minutes at a time. I mean, that's a really interesting point you're pointing out there. So this has been my big concern about mewing from the start. And of course, I haven't been doing much talk about mewing. I've been otherwise a stressed bunny. Now, if you don't have enough tongue space, you can't put your tongue back and get in the right position. So we're doing 2 classic compensations to compensate for having craniofacial dystrophy. The first one is you push your head forward. The second one is you bring your teeth, you move your tongue to some position that makes it more comfortable so that you can breathe and eat and sleep and survive with a reduced tongue space. So if you get someone to chin tuck, stand up straight, remember, don't hold this with your neck muscles, hold this with your tongue, the back third. That's important. You'll destabilize your neck otherwise. You then get them to bring their teeth together. Right? So the tongue has been between the teeth slightly. So the tongue's got to come in from between the teeth slightly, or various different positions, but classically slightly between the teeth. The teeth are then going to come together. Both of those have reduced tongue space. This has reduced tongue space a lot. Now, most people have got their tongue in their airway. And as hard as they're trying to remember to do this consciously, to say, well, tongue's on the roof of the mouth, lips together, teeth together, tongue on the roof of the mouth. That's the mantra. That's what I remember. My father would get particularly the Grand Rapids group in Michigan, Grand Rapids, where he had one of his most disloyal groups, and they would sing teeth together, the lips together, teeth together, tongue on the roof of the mouth. Lips together, teeth together, tongue on the roof of the mouth. It's such a simple mantra, so hard to do all the time, as you're finding out. So where was I? So you've got the angel on one side saying, I know what to do. Mike makes a lot of sense. This fits in with so many other things from other places because it's the truth. And then on the other side, you've got the devil that says, breathe. Now, what's going to win? It's going to take a really, it's going to be one of the hardest things you do to change this postural habit. And I think a lot of you are going to need to get some artificial tongue space. So we're just going to need to widen you so that you can then get into mewing. But, I was saying to Serene before we started that I wanted to get a different lab for doing my MSE implant placements. I mean, I've stopped taking adults, but I'm going to honor the few people that I've offered treatment to and finish it up. I'm going to have a year off and then get my mind together. And then hopefully I'm going to raise a lot of money, go back into this in real style, because this is what I want to do. Yeah, I'm having to go back to my core treatment, which is kids for the moment. Okay. But I want to come back to this area and I want to help all of you because I love it. I started doing this and I want to help you. And there's a good connection, good reason for doing it. But at the moment, so when I look at, I phoned this company up and he meets me. And of course, he's trying to sell to me. He doesn't know who I am. He just clearly got an address or a telephone number I sent through. And he's saying, oh, I'm the biggest in airway orthodontics. All the airway orthodontists see me. I work for blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, I just laugh at this term airway orthodontics. I mean, the way he put it. And I said, really, we're the fathers of airway orthodontics. Bill Hang, I think, brought the term up properly. But my father's been talking about and doing this for, 30, 40 years longer than these other people. So, he was really in there on the early days. And I think often when I look at airway orthodontics, a lot of it is what we would do in our preparatory phase of orthotropics. So the first thing in orthotropics I'm going to do is gain significant changes in structure. I often say that there's a muscle memory. We all know about muscle memory. I don't need to teach you about muscle memory. What is not often thought about is that what I call structural memory. So for most of you, your face, your craniofacial structure is the reflection of your posture and function for your entire life. Some of you have had some orthodontics or surgery intervened in there, possibly with retainers or not. And so your old or your cumulative posture and function, and particularly your current, is determine the structure you have. So that your current posture and function is the most comfortable that you can do in the current structure that you have. So it's very hard to change your posture and function without also changing the structure. And that's what I mean by some structural memory. So gaining some expansion, and I think this MSE idea of gaining some expansion with MSE, it conceptually, it's great. I mean, I tried to do something like this years ago before I'd heard about One Moon or anything like that. I thought, it made sense. TADS had come out. I did something. I basically got a bit more slippage than I imagined. I didn't really get as many nice results as I wanted. And I moved on, and it was then when I saw what One Moon was doing, I thought, great, yeah, he's laid a lot of groundwork here. Let's get back into it, and I've had some nice cases. But my problem with a lot of this is if you really work the maxilla with some forward paw headgear, you end up being class 2, and then you've got to work out what to do with being class 2. So I don't worry about widening. I saw Ron Eid, did the one, a man with a plan for the mandible, I think it was, and he was talking about working the mandible. I don't really have problems in the mandible. When you look at most mandibles, even this guy here, less those molars, but this molar, you see how they're tipped inwards, and they're tipped inwards. People with narrow maxillae, top jaws, the mandible teeth are nearly always tucked in, think about where the tongue goes. If the tongue drops down, it drops down out of the maxilla. It tends to sit around here. And you often see quite a lot of flaring of the mandible. This bit of mandible, in relative terms, is relatively flared out. So you're not really expanding the mandibular teeth. You just tip them upwards. It's this attitude as you widen the maxilla and it comes forwards, and it should do with good forward pull, getting it back into a better position. You're then stuffed, or you get a problem because you're class 2, and that's a thing I am going to have to. I want to come over. I want to have a better solution to that when I go back into doing MSEs again and really pumping this area. But it's, this is the multi-million-dollar question, how to get going at mewing. And I think, going back to, so when we're talking about airway orthodontics, there's loads of people. I mean, the easiest one to do, I think, is the ALF, and the ALF's going to open wide. I've seen, there's a guy here in South London who's just about to retire. He's getting some really nice results using myo braces with an upper ALF in adults. And that makes sense to me, because one of the nice things about a myo brace, again, I had one around, it's gone. Better, I'll prepare better that one next time. You see, because the myo brace tends to push the teeth, gum, and bones rather than just pushing the teeth, and it has a slight Frankel effect where it's pushing everything away. So I think that if you lack in tongue space, I think possibly one of the really cheapest, simplest, easiest ways to improve tongue space is that upper ALF with a myo brace. While you're, and remember, that's only helping you. It's only giving you a helping hand. You're still pulling yourself up here. Remember, I'm no more than a glorified personal trainer with some good bits of kit. Now, I've got some good kit, fine, but you don't turn up to the gym, stand around on the machines all day, having a chat and a coffee and expect to get fit, however good those machines are. Unless you're using them and using them properly and pushing yourself forwards, nothing going to work. Now, when I go back to my sort of my query with these people doing airway orthodontics, we're getting some fantastic expansion. We're moving things out. Where's the great changer in posture and function? Because in bioblock orthotropics, I get, all of this. I create the ugly duckling point, which is where I sort of half correct the structure. I gain some important corrections in structure, increasing nasal airway size, pushing the upper incisors forwards, getting some general gross expansion. And then I put them in a brace like this that you can see where the fangs drop down here and they drop down there. So if someone drops their jaw down, ow, it hurts. Now you're going to change. Then I put a timer in that so I know how much they're wearing it and get them to wear that all the time. And in young people, it's very, very effective. I've seen some good effects in older people, sorry. And that's clearly, that's my heart is. That's what I'm going to go to. But I need just to step back for a second from this, because it was literally killing me. I was this close to having a breakdown, and I just needed to stand back and have a little bit more time to reflect and think about it sensibly. All right. Okay. Question answered. Yeah, you're going to get the tongue space. You might need some help. Go to any of these airway orthodontic people. Have a little look around. MSE, great idea. Careful of the top jaw. Pulling too hard with the top. You think you want to pull hard with the top jaw. You want to get it forwards, but then you leave the bottom jaw behind. And that's hard to correct in an adult when it's not growing anymore. This is the problems we're facing. I like that idea with an upper ALF and a myo brace, and I presume, you're going to have to, I want to talk to this particular practitioner about what size, because clearly you need to be pushing it with a myo brace that's slightly bigger than someone. And then, of course, my big fallback, guys, anyone wanting to go and get some treatment tomorrow, get a Frankel. Go and get a Frankel. I mean, listen, we'll have some time to talk about Frankels at some point. Or someone asked me, but go and research it. Your Frankel's your brace. I don't know what your problem is. Frankel's probably the answer. All it's going to do is tip the balance in your direction. Okay, Serene, I'm going back to questions. What have you got from me? Okay. Okay. So Nina's second question. We're going to have to jump because I see questions coming up, and I don't just want the first questions. So Nina's second question. I really do not like chewing gum. Are there mewing alternatives now made from silicone for front teeth and back teeth like jawliner? What do you think about them? Okay, so what we've been doing in our clinic is we were buying silicone tubing. So we were buying medical grade silicone tubing. So the sort of silicone lengths of silicone tubing that you would make for suction during a medical procedure. So they're medically graded. It wasn't actual medical grade. Medical grade is the stuff that you can actually put inside bodies. And so then we were getting people to chew on them. The advantage of these chewies, and sorry, I mean, I'm hopeless at having things around today. I need someone, a stooge behind me to run around and get things. So we were just cutting them into little pieces about 1 centimeter long. And the advantage of these were that they were pretty hard to break. And when you did break them, you could see you'd broken them because you'd broken them, you physically broken them. So it gave you that reward of physically breaking them. The problem with it is you're certainly taking silicone on board. And we reflected on this, and of course, what we were doing was we were getting. So I've done some research, and I've referenced the research I've done, and everyone before we give them these silicone tubies has to sign this that they know this is off-label. Where it's what I can find that's good. Now, what I want to go and do is I want to get some really, really high grade silicone tubing because you're getting down to that the purity of silicone and the less uncured silicone. So the pure silicone that seems to be fairly okay for people, it's the silicone byproducts and the silicone that isn't as well cured that seem to be the problem in the research I did. However, they're still saying silicone is pretty safe. And the silicone that isn't, the more liquid it is, or the more the harder and more dense it is, the safer it is, because the more polymerized, the more solid it is, and then it's not going to dissociate. It stays in big chains, and the body's just not interested in big chains because the body doesn't react with them. Silicone, I think, is not a bad idea. I mean, some of these things like we've got the jaw liner and you've got the chisel and jaws as sizer. These are these things that you can chew on. I tried one of them for a while. One of the interesting thing about them is that you don't overclose when you're using them. So you're not going to get too many worries with jaw joint problems, although clearly you could get worried with jaw joint problems. And that's always my worry about when I'm recommending people to chew. In fact, if you watch carefully, I don't think I've ever really recommended people to chew. I always say, I can say tongue chewing, but I'm more just concerned about people getting jaw joint problems. So if you're going to chew, just, do the pinky test, write some things down, see how wide you can open 3 fingers. I can't even do 3 fingers. Just. So be sensible, watch your jaw joints if you're going to go on one of these. If you're going to go chewing, try not to have a gargantuan chewing marathon. I don't think it's going to do anyone any favors. All right, now I'm going to go right the way down to the bottom question that's been flagged up here. So I've got my WhatsApp on the side. Okay. Lelz, Lelez. I think we had him earlier on. What can be factors that contribute to the development of tooth crowding? Oh, we had that one, but not in the other. That's the first question I asked. Okay, so let's go back. We've got one from Colin. Okay. What is the most amount of forward growth in millimeters you've achieved or seen proof of in adult MSE face mask case? Most MSE orthos I talk to say they haven't seen much of this in adults. I'm in a class 3. So now this is interesting. I saw a case, I think it was by the American guy who, one of the guys teaching, not One Moon, not God, names escape me when I'm one of the guys teaching on courses, and you could definitely see the maxilla had come forwards. How much I would probably go on the sort of 4 mm type front. Now, the problem is that often as you pull the maxilla forwards, it comes down a bit. Remember, if you come down, that makes a class 3 look less obvious. So you can be thinking you're correcting the class 3, when actually what you're doing is just moving down. And then you don't actually move the maxilla nearly far as forward as you think you're moving the maxilla further forward. It's hard. It really is hard getting that maxilla forwards. And I think the biggest variable is what the person does. I mean, this is the massive thing, is what an individual does. And that seems to be the massive, great big variable in all of this. And we've got people pulling in various different ways, in various different methods. Again, that's something, I've learned from experience. We get the maxilla forward, I guess, again, the same 2 to 4 millimeters. No, I'm not desperately impressed with that. If my adult MSEs had gone fantastically well, I'd be sticking with it. And I'm just not totally impressed with my adult MSEs. So another thing I'm going to do when I stop this MSE work is go around and have a good look at what everyone's doing. But to engage in a project like that takes your absolute focus and dedication of months to look up where to go, what results are, and then you go around. And I want to go on lots of courses. Because, again, I'm slightly counting my chickens that the Mewing app's going to bring me more money in. I don't think people realize, you talk to all these orthodontists, they've got, well, I mean, the type of cash compared to me they've got is just like crazy. The way they talk. Oh my, you fly over here. Oh, do that. I go, I don't have any money. I mean, I don't know how you can understand this. When I say no money, I mean no money. I can't go out to eat often. Proper no money. It's crazy because I'm trying to do something fantastic for the world, and of course, yeah, such is life. But ideally, we get some more income from the Mewing app. I don't have to work as hard. I've got a girl who's working with me who hopefully will get her qualification. She's qualified in Turkey. Hope she gets qualified soon. Then I can focus on I don't have to be glued to my desk. She can treat patients. I can have a week off. Aha. Go somewhere and not be on call all the time. And I guess I need to do that. And so I'm cutting down on the clinical hours I work. And I'm going to have more time off, more time to focus on these other things that I think will make more income. And of course, then I make more income, then I can invest it back in the clinic, and we start this merry-go-round. But if I continue doing what I do, I think I fulfill Einstein's definition of madness. So we need a change. All right. So class 3s. Yeah, Colin. So class 3s are the great. I think they're the ones I'm focusing my MSc on, because then I don't have to worry about getting the mandible forwards. And I really think that getting good postural work, getting good body work, and then I think we're going to need a little bit more. I think maybe not only do we need widening with this MSc, but I think we might need some attachments removed further back, some minor surgical operations to help things come forwards. Clearly, this is science in progress. This is where we've got to go forward. And I just want to go around and talk to people, get people's opinions, because I feel everyone's just hiding their information. It's like everyone has they've built a sort of picket fence around the information they're in, and they're hiding it. And I want to go in and do exactly the opposite. Make some money out of the Mewing app, make some money out of the other ideas, and then give away as much of my information for as cheap as possible. Maybe not totally free, but someone's got to do it. All right, going down. All right, so a great question. Again, actually, it's Colin. It's what is a Frankel? Right. Okay. Now, I've never done a share screen on something like this before. I don't want to touch it. Well, I'll practice it before we meet next time. Right. Okay. So Rolf Frankel was an orthodontist in East Germany during the time of the Iron Curtain. So my father was the first orthodontist to go out and visit him from the UK. He took my mother with him, and my mother was pregnant with me. So I guess one day I will be the first, or let's say I guess first orthodontist from the Britain to ever have gone and met Frankel. Okay, I was in uterine. Anyway, Frankel used to come and stay with us. Lovely chap. Didn't speak much English, which limited our ability. But clearly, I was a young, 1, 2, 3 years old when he was coming over. Now, what Frankel was doing was clearly he was doing something completely different. He was in East Germany. He was out the loop of everyone else. He made these big buckle shields. So we had an appliance in the house. So look up the Frankel appliance. It's not difficult to look up. And the shields would pull the cheeks away. So you had these big buckle shields holding the cheeks away. Then you had shields either holding the bottom lip or the top lip away for the various different types of malocclusion that he was treating. Generally, I think he was trying to do the bottom for class 2s and the top for class 3s. So he was pulling forward the skin so that what you're doing is where we know that the teeth, the bone, and the gums are sitting in a balance between the lips and the cheeks on the outside and the tongue on the inside. We know that's not in question. I mean, everyone knows that. And interesting enough, that was first proposed by the prosthetic dentists when they were trying to balance dentures. So that is really ingrained in dentistry. It's not nothing new. That came from actually prosthetic dentists who were vastly bigger than orthodontics. Orthodontists were nobodies up till relatively recently in dentistry. So the Frankel appliance physically holds the cheeks back. So you've got these big shields, and the shields are holding back. They're doing what shields do. You hold back what you don't want. And so you affect this balance. So you change the equilibrium of the balance zone in favor of the tongue, holding back the cheeks, holding back the lower lip. Now, the advantage of that appliance is it can work all the time, particularly at night. Because, who's going to mew at night? But lip tape, wear one of those, it's great. The one thing it doesn't have, and the one thing, my dad's criticism, if it didn't have that feedback loop, the BioBlock Stage 3, the BioBlock training appliance, has these fangs that stick down in the bottom jaw. If you drop your jaw down, it hurts. The best way to describe it to patients who come and see me, I say that when I'm driving, or rather, I'm a passenger in my wife's car, my right foot is going down like that. A lot. Why? And so look at me blankly, and some of them will come up with the answer, which is, well, because I'm trying to brake, because she scares me. I guess I taught her to drive, and my father, who still holds a lap record at Brands Hatch and made Formula One, he taught me to drive. So I scare her a little bit. Anyway, I know it's a little bit rude to be doing that, but I literally can't help it. I cannot help it. She does get up close to cars and she does jump those opportunities. I can't help putting my foot on the imaginary brake on the floor pan in front of me. Now, then I say to the parents, because I'm often talking to parents at this point, although I engage the kids, and I'm saying, okay, so I turn to the child and I go, now, would she do that? And the parents look at me, no, of course she wouldn't. I go, why not? Because she's not learnt to drive yet. So that capacity of learning to drive, you have developed a conditioned reflex response. It's like everything you're doing when you play tennis, you play sport. There's so many things you don't think about it. And I saw this thing about learning, the capacity of learning, and they were talking actually again a car narrative where you reverse your car up your drive. And the first few times you do that, I tell you, you do it at a glacial pace. Stop, start, because it's driving up, reversing car up a drive when you're first learning or first got your license. It's a difficult thing to do. I tell you now, I can do it much more routinely, much more smoothly with minimal brain power. So what I've done is that I've deeply ingrained that ability in my brain. And this is what you've got to do with mewing. You're deeply ingraining these abilities. And there's nothing like something like that feedback mechanism to do that. But of course, that demands your mouth being closed. That demands you having enough tongue space to be able to cope in that position without that causing other issues like tongue in the back of your airway. Okay? Most important thing in your life, your airway. Huh? So the Frankel doesn't have that feedback loop, but once you're past 18, particularly if you're trying, you're aware that you don't want to lengthen your face, I don't think you're likely to get facial lengthening. And the Frankel plants can be really good just for changing this balance zone. Now, the Frankel plants did have a feedback loop when done correctly. So the idea with the Frankel plants is you would raise the top and the bottom of the buccal shields till they fully occupied the sulcus. Okay, what's the sulcus? All right. Well, the sulcus is written down here. All right. When I try and swallow, my finger gets pushed up. So the sulcus shortens or gets filled up either ways, but it's getting, the musculature is invading the integrity of the sulcus when you use the perioral musculature, facial musculature. From the facial nerve, that's the seventh facial nerve, isn't it? Correct. So as soon as you start using the muscles of facial expression, which in a swallow shouldn't be used, then you're going to usually, not always, but usually shorten the sulcus. Same way is if I got my bicep, I can do this and I can make my bicep fatter. Well, I'm actually not making it any bigger. Laws of conservation, there's only so much bicep there. It gets shorter, it gets fatter. So as these are using these muscles, they're getting shorter and fatter. The sulcus is being shortened. Well, it's a little bit different depending where you are on the sulcus, to be honest. But either ways, if you've got a big buccal shield in there, particularly these lower ones, if you have a Frankel, you'll hate these ones. Everyone does. That's the biggest thing. But then the more you're hating it, well, what's it doing? It's reminding you not to use those things. The lip, sorry. I think they're called buttons, aren't they? Yeah, I think they called them the lip button. Oh, I'm getting good. Anyway, but either ways, I'd highly recommend, one of the things about the Frankel is because it is affecting the outer muscles of the musculature. There's holding back the lips and the cheeks. It's not actually moving the teeth at all. It's moving the teeth indirectly. So it is really safe. Yes, you can bend it and it can dig in, but I had one bend and damage a root up there. And the wires often go between the teeth and you can grind on them and that can cause them to be damage the teeth a little bit. Someone even cracked a tooth because they had a wire running over it. But if you wear it lightly and you have it in your mouth enough of the time, the teeth should jiggle around to fit. So if you've got a wire going, because of course you've got something on the inside of your mouth, you've got something on the outside of your mouth, you need wires traversing to connect it. Remember, we have opposing fingers and thumbs. If you've got a brace, you want to grab on the inside and the outside. That's how you hold things. Okay. Now I actually want to develop a new method, a new Frankel. I've got it in my head yet, and I will be trying to develop that. That is simpler, but anyone who wants to get a bit of tongue space could go and get a Frankel. It is, I think it's the ultimate appliance, but most people would say that a Frankel will not get any change in an adult. And routinely, a Frankel won't get changes in adults because a Frankel's really designed for young people. It's designed for young people. I mean, what you were talking about something in the region of, well, ideally 14 to 18 hours wear a day in young children. And young children are not small adults. No, they've got growth hormones, they've got bone turnover, all kinds of things adults just don't have. In theory, it should work. In the cases I've had some success, a little bit of widening, 1-2 millimeters. But 1-2 millimeters in the length of a mouth can make quite a lot of difference. And I'm sure that, well, what I couldn't get over, the Frankel cases just look better. Their faces look nicer. Whatever had happened, they just reduced the musculature. And this is what I'm thinking a lot of. I think really understanding how faces grow and how faces look well, you've got to understand the relative implication with the relative efforts of the top and bottom lip. I think a lot of people are messed up just because the bottom lip doesn't do as much, does too much, and the top lip doesn't do as much. And I think there's something in there. And I think, um, yeah, well, I want to get a little bit deeper on that. Okay, so let's go to Chris Corrao. Corrao. Sorry, I'm not very good at reading. I think I have a reading age of a 12-year-old, apparently. Any experience with septoplasty, deviated septum surgery? Does it help mewing, getting tongue on roof of mouth? Well, now maybe I see all the people where septoplasties failed. Probably true. But from what I've seen, I'm a little bit concerned about septoplasties. What I would do more, I think, is think about something you can get ballooning. I mean, have anyone heard of NCR, neurocranial restructuring? This is a method of paranasal inflation. So what they do is they put a little balloon up your nose and then inflate it. Now we have what they call the concha. Let's call them turbinates. I think it's an easier word. So you've really got, we talk about 3 turbinates. The top turbinate is so very high up. I don't know if everyone has it. The bottom lower turbinate is the big turbinate. That's what stops your finger going further up your nose. And they are sort of, hang around. They come in like that and they do this. And you can see what they're for. They're for causing the air to rotate and turbine. They're like turbine blades. That's what they are. And they're increasing the surface area, but also getting the air to move. The body is a great design. I love the design of the body, and it. The idea is the turbinates, you've got a certain amount of mucosa all over them, and that they go in cycles. So one expands, so the skin in one area swells up, one nostril, the skin swells up, so it completely blocks everything, and there's no space in that nostril. You're breathing out this nostril. So at the moment, I'm fairly even at the moment, but if you try and block your nostrils, and let's say you've got reasonably good structure, then what you're going to notice, you move from one nostril to the other nostril to another nostril to the other nostril. And I think that what happens is that the nostril completely blocks, and because the cells swell up, and they then get rid of the dirt and the muck and kill anything nasty that might have got in there. Then that one opens up, and then this one closes and does the same thing. Now, as most of you should know, I'm talking about craniofacial dystrophy. The face should grow forwards, but what's happening is the face is dropping down, and we're down swinging, and the nasal septum, it's, a bit like a page in a book. And as you downswing, it bends, it buckles, and it goes wrong. If I had a head-on accident with my car, I would expect my car to be a little less symmetric. And so let's think about what we can do apart from just deviated septum surgery. You could ask your surgeon if they're going to do paranasal inflation. Well, that's a much calmer method of doing it. What I'm always cautious about is anything that could cause scarring, because if you cut things, it scars, and scarring, don't leave too much scarring around, because it's going to cause problems later on, depending on what else you want to do. So ideally, if you got some effective skeletal expansion, right? So, probably MSC. Dad did this research where he's showing he gained some expansion in adults using the semi-rapid rate, using a upper bioblock stage 1. Well, of course, he did that in the UK 20, 30 years ago, and he's just done that again taking some data from Lithuania. Well, Okay, so those adults in Lithuania, well, most of them, they were born, either during the Soviet era or shortly afterwards in a much harder environment. When you go over there, you're seeing much better facial forms. It's almost a representation of where people in Britain were 20 or 30 years ago. So the fact that dad's got that then and they've got that in Lithuania now doesn't mean it's as easy. And when I really started just widening people on stage ones, I got some clear skeletal expansion with some of them. And, some really working hard on chewing, these other things. Yeah, but it wasn't as frequent. We weren't getting it on everyone. So there was stage one, and I haven't really worked out. Again, this is what I want to do. I want to have more adults. I want to have more time, more headspace to go in and really hit this adult world. I don't claim to be the best clinician. I'd like to be for adults. I believe we're getting the best changes in facial form achieved by young people ever. For young people, hey, someone beat me. Okay. But apart from that, I think we're getting some really great results for young people. Okay. I don't see people getting them. Simon Wong in Melbourne is my competition. Apart from that, I see someone, you treat enough patients, you'll get someone who changes. It's the Catherine Zeta-Jones people. She had 4 premolar extractions. Her tongue stayed on the roof of the mouth. Didn't matter what you did. She made her face good. That wasn't the orthodontist that did that. Now, everyone's going to have a case like that. Can look great. It's just getting consistency. And of course, amount, because, we talk about research, we talk about randomized clinical controlled trials. Well, we don't worry about that at the Olympics, do we? It's the first over the line in the Olympics. That's it. You won. You won. And that is it. So if you're getting the best results in the world, then there is something to that as well. So, but clearly, right. So now I'm going to go down this list of. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's a question here. You say it's easiest way to expand the upper jaw is ALF and my brace. Is it superior to the BioBlock stage 1? Okay. Now, if you do the BioBlock stage 1, it's going to rigidly hold the teeth and you go boom. I mean, nothing rigidly holds. I mean, I'm sure you get a little bit of this going on, but it's not going to do much to the bottom jaw. Now, in someone under 4 years old, they're flexible enough. Everything will just mold and move and you get them chewing hard and it all works out. Someone who's 18 to 35, 40, it will do what it says on the tin. It will widen the teeth. Often the teeth will just tip. If you're working hard enough, they will upright. And of course, that you'll get more of the skeletal expansion. But you've got to have your tongue on the roof of your mouth. You've got to be really chewing hard, forcing those teeth to stay upright because they're going to stay upright against the force they're using. And if you've got open sutures and if you're lucky, yeah, then when you do that with the BioBlock stage 1, the maxilla comes forwards, you open up the airway, the maxilla comes forwards. It's absolutely fantastic. You wouldn't want anything else. Then you can use a lower BioBlock stage 1 to open the lower. Clearly, you're going to go at half the rate because the bottom is 1 jaw, the top's 2 jaws. So you go twice as fast in the upper as the lower. However, then you've got to re-coordinate the jaws and get everything right. And then you're likely to have a bit of spacing at certain ways. You just do this, you're likely to have spacing around the canine and central, the front teeth, particularly at the corners. Whereas if you do a ALF and a my brace, you're not going to get any of these problems because the bottom will go with the upper. The teeth will just shuffle themselves around. It's just going to be safer. It's less, if you wanted to come to me and I wanted to do some adult expansion, we could try stage 1, we could get some expansion, we could see if it worked. Maybe it would work. I could get the bottom in and we could get a really nice job. But man, I mean, I believe I'm good with my fingers, and to make certain I was good with my fingers, I went and worked in an orthodontic laboratory making appliances to get really good with my fingers. And I've been doing this since 97. And I'm not cost conscious. I mean, I don't run this clinic to make money. I run this clinic to get perfect outcomes. So yeah, great. If you can find another me, great, knock on. go on with the stage one, upper and lower stage ones. Great. It's a great idea. If you can't, then you're much likely to be better off with a Maya brace with an upper stage one, upper ALF. So that's my conversion with the ALF and the stage one. That, I mean, what is best for you is determined by what you can get, if that makes sense. Now, okay, so we've got a question from we've got 10 minutes. I mean, I'm not too fast if I run over a little bit. You know, clearly you are helping me. Anything I can do to help you is, well, that's fair, guys. So I'm from, I think this is Cow Pram. Okay, I think if I'm wrong. Okay, my brother is mewing with braces in or on, I'm guessing. Would this help reduce the damage from the braces, or should you take the braces off? Well, you know, I remember when I was working as an orthodontist, so this must be right back in about 98, 99. So I was working one day a week here, Thursdays. We used to run this clinic on Thursdays with Dad. Then I was working with Andrew McCants in East Grinstead, and he came up with something called Clear Step, which was a competitor to Invisalign, and he then went spectacularly bust sometime after I'd been working for him. And when I first worked with him, I remember a couple of cases where I put all the brackets on the teeth. So I'm doing normal National Health Orthodontics, and I treated a patient every 5 or 10 minutes. We worked long hours, and the amount of experience I got there was just like shocking. I mean, just like crazy. I was working like 4 days a week with him, long hours, a patient every 5 to 10 minutes. And obscene how many patients I treated, just obscene. But that was the day, you know, they could get national health treatment with me, or they were on a waiting list for 4 years down the road. So they shut up and put up with 5-minute appointments. Now, what I noticed a couple of times was patients had fairly crooked teeth. Generally, I mean, with teeth lining up, so class 1, so the top and bottom dental arches were relatively well coordinated with each other. I mean, they fitted together quite well. You know, they might be down swung, clear they were. They were slightly crowded, and you'd put the brackets on, you'd put the little light wire, the starting wire that was very soft, very bendy, really didn't put much force on. And then they'd disappear. You wouldn't see them for 6 months. And they'd turn up in 6 months, and the teeth would be absolutely perfectly straight. Every single one of them was perfectly straight. I mean, it was an ideal, you know, you could have taken some photographs and presented that for an examination. Now, you think, you know, you know, as a young orthodontist, you think, yeah, I'm the man. Look what I've just done. Well, what have you done, actually? I think clearly what you've done is, again, a little bit like going back to Frankel, you've tipped the balance. You've tipped the balance in the direction of outward, you know, just outwardness. You know, you put the wire on, it's sprung inside, and it's sprung outwards. It's just the tongue was reasonably good, and the braces were helping, and then you've got straight teeth. It took 6 months, nice and slow, worked perfectly. Now, I would imagine that if your younger brother was mewing effectively, you'd get the same sort of result. So, but he'd have to mew correctly. And of course, this is the other thing, you know, I've only put a couple of videos up about mewing. I don't really go into detail. That's what we've got the Mewing app for. I mean, hopefully the Mewing app is coming up soon. And as a sort of thing, you Patreons, I will give you all the opportunity to test run the Mewing app. So anyone here who is a Patreon of mine, I'll put an advert up fairly soon. I mean, it's going to be really soon, because I'm hoping the Mewing app is ready really soon. And I'd love anyone who wants to volunteer. We'll send them a copy of the Mewing app. And I would like you to give me some feedback on, well, we're going to be quite quick, because this goddamn company that has been doing it has just, been delayed. I finished at Easter last year. It's coming up a year that those videos have been finished. You can imagine the frustration. Anyway, we get a 2-week turnover point. They hand it over, and then we've got to give them all the fixes that need to be done before 2 weeks when we sign it off and release it. So that's coming up. And of course, there is so much more into there. It's not magic. I don't have that fairy dust. You still have to do hard work and effort, but I'm sure it will help many of you just perfect it and get better. Okay, so we've got Emlyn. There could be Emily, badly spelt, but it's not Crosby. Okay, would you be able to provide an overview of what Nick, your patient in the New York Times article, went through during his 2-year transformation from 2 years to 9 years old? Yes. Okay. So what we did, we put an upper alpha in. First of all, I sent them away. So I had a couple of patients coming in, and I sent them all away and said, look, if you can get a little bit of expansion in your top jaw without me helping you, then I'll improve it. So he came back and he had got a little bit of, not much. I mean, I think about 0.5 mil to 3/4 mil. I took 3 separate teeth, so I gave him a good approximation. These days we're scanning mouths, so we get a far higher accuracy. And again, the principle was I wanted to create a little bit of space so that he could get going. And then I used exactly this appliance. So this is now an old version of what I refer to as the hybrid appliance. So, but at the time, this was the one Nick had. So he had this screw on the top here, and it has got the fangs either side. So this appliance progressively widened it, and he wore it more than 12 hours every day. And we progressively widened it. We'd have a little break, and we'd put another one on, progressively widened it. It's a real shame because just as he left to go back to Sweden, COVID hit, and I didn't see him since, which is a real shame. We've been in contact, but he's worked really hard. And of course, you know, as ever, he'll be a bit further down the line. He's probably got a relationship, probably onto kids, not so fast anymore. Okay, and that's what that happens to all of us, doesn't it? But clearly, you know, you want to get out of your problem and then move forward. All right. So, okay, we've got a question down to Lenez. I think I'm getting better at, hopefully. Lenez Z. For those with minimal tongue space to properly mew or are wearing retainers, would chewing cause some positive effects on facial form? Well, these are the ones where I worry you're more likely to get jaw joint problems. So if you're just going to rely on chewing, you risk damaging your jaw joints. And I can't, you know, I can't really recommend. I mean, you know, you could. I'd suggest tongue chewing. So if you want to hit this in a purely mechanicalistic respect, then I'd suggest tongue chewing. I'd use normal high street gum, and you've seen some video. I've done some videos on tongue chewing. Just basically, you're making bread on the roof of your mouth. You roll the chewing gum up. You squash it progressively. Just it's like a deadlift. So you're like deadlifting your tongue on the roof of the mouth, and you push and push and push, maybe push side, forwards, backwards, and then you drop your tongue down, and you should have this huge sheet. You've pressed the chewing gum into as big a sheet as you possibly can. You then roll it up and you squash it again, and you just spend the whole day doing that, because tongue chewing is not going to get you into problems with jaw joint problems, and it gets more balanced. So if you look at one of those old videos where I used an image of my wife Miller, and then I painted her face different colors, and we looked at what bits of the face were relative to what musculature underneath. I say that I think the masticatory effect is it comes in from about here it goes down here, and it comes forward here. And if you've got a strong jaw, you'll get this area here, you know, like me. This area here builds up. It actually goes backwards like that and outwards as you build it up. I mean, I'm a good example of that. But if you want to develop this area of your face around here, the sort of inner butterfly that goes here to here, yep, then that's your tongue on the roof of the mouth. So the different bits of the face are going to be different, are affected by different parts of the system. And clearly we're looking at the posture and function of the tongue and the posture and function of the jaw muscles. Those are two important things. But so, and one of the things I need to say about mewing, and it's going to come out more on the Mewing app, is that you should hold your tongue there with suction. So, you know, you get into a good position like this and you just swallow. You do a tongue sweep, and the tongue basically draws back a little bit, like, you know, you've got a syringe, like, you know, the syringe go when you pop them. Okay, so as you're pulling the syringe back, imagine your tongue's being pulled back. So and just hold the tongue back. And as you hold the tongue back, all the saliva then starts running through from these areas into the little space underneath your tongue, right by the ducts of the submandibular glands. And your tongue then comes back down, lifts it up, goes back on the end spot, and then boom, wave back. And that wave starts here and it stops in your stomach. It should be a continuous peristaltic wave all the way through, I believe. And as it goes back, you should really focus on the back third of the tongue. But you end up vacuuming your whole mouth. And you vacuum it so much that you can see this bit here is sucked up. Because you now got a vacuum here. If you can put your lips into a nice place, pout them nicely, whatever you want to do. And then you just vacuum pack. You know, you've got, let's say you've got a set of curtains on the outside. You've got a big balloon in the middle. You hold the curtains tight. You pump up the balloon. Your teeth are going to go straight. This isn't rocket science. This is fairly simple stuff. Anyway, more of that out with the Mewing app. But it's holding. All you got to do is hold the suction. As long as you hold the seal. And you know, this is the interesting thing. You know, when I'm in a max vax, you know, maximum vacuum with your tongue. You know, this is my comfortable posture. Go figure it. You know, actually standing up straight feels more comfortable than being down there. So I'll let the vacuum go and chase comfort. Okay, that's comfortable now. And you go from this to this. And that's what you want. That's the thing you want. Yeah. And you just need to hold the vacuum. Because you can hold vacuum and straight. There's something else goes on, because actually the back third of the tongue, I think, is interrelated with the posture of the deep cervical neck muscles. So actually, you know, you've got, you know, because that back third of the tongue comes from the inner muscles, the endoderm. And so, you know, like your heart, I don't think about standing up, do I? It's not effort to stand up, and yet muscles are contracting all the time to keep me standing up. And so those are postural muscles. Okay, moving on. Well, let's take one more question. We have gone over, and there's also a message on my WhatsApp from my wife saying, "When am I back?" So, you know, we want to carry on for too long. So how fast can buccinator atrophy occur? Okay, so let's go on a little side version here. I remember when I was at my 8, 9, 10 year prep school, we called it. You know, that's the posh primary school. And I remember in the locker room, there was a boy who was standing there showing off his leg that had just come out of plaster. Now, back then, if I remember, plasters went on for, was it 12 weeks? I think that was because they worked out how long it took bones to fully mend. And they'd gone, oh, well, it's going to take 12 weeks or something, which we now realize is, yeah, it's great for bones, but it's a disaster for the muscles. So we've really shortened the amount of time, and we're making much more flexible casts. And of course, you see a lot of footballers who will refuse casts because clearly for them, they can't afford wastage, and because they're going to recover that muscle strength. Now, I remember looking at this guy, I can't remember, standing there in his underwear, and I was looking at him, and I went, oh, wow. I mean, he had one normal leg, and he had one itty-witty little leg, and all the muscles are gone. And this was 12 weeks. I mean, I can't remember exactly, but literally 12 weeks is the top end of what it would have been then. You know, look up how long people left their legs in plaster back then. But that was 12 weeks. For all of the muscles, his leg was a diddy little leg. It was a lot smaller than the other leg. Well, now you're talking how fast can buccinator atrophy occur? Well, I would say very quickly. You know, one of the things I'm going to do when the heat's off, and this is another project I would love to do, I would love to selectively nuke certain muscles with Botox. Now, clearly, I'm only going to talk about this until I'm well out of the range of the orthodontic TIE fighters. And because, I mean, they would just shoot me down for even considering this, but not till we really understand the value. When people understand the value of this, then they'll be going, okay, all right. And if anyone goes ahead with this, look, I want your records, please. And I want a nice signed up dissertation of what you did, because I want to learn from what you're doing. But if we could Botox that buccinator, if we could Botox these little, so let's pretend you go and get some structural change. Having gained that structural change, you're trying to change your habits, right? You can't remember to change the habits because, you know, you've got structural change that's helping, but you're a creature of habits, like me in the car, touching the floor pan because I'm scared, you know, I'm not stopping doing it. You know, let's say I don't need to drive anymore, or I've got an electric car that drives me, and I'm still touching the floor pan. So even though I know I don't have to ever again, I'm still doing it. And older habits die hard. Okay, we know older habits die hard. If they remember, if I could plug into the back of your cerebellum, that's all I would need to do. Don't forget that, please. Yeah. You know, so as hard as I say that it is to change as an adult, watch someone who has a stroke. And remember, stroke's only surface musculature. I've been in hospitals. When I was working in Brighton, I remember this guy who had a road traffic accident. They severed his facial nerve, the trigeminal nerve. I remember that's nerve number 5. It's a big, bulky nerve. It doesn't normally get damaged. Very deep within our development. And his face, so that's the power muscles were affected. And his face just went, it's almost daily you could see it dropping. And he was in his late 40s, tough guy with a solid face, and one was just melting away. And, you know, that would happen at any age. So it's possible to change if you're geared in all the time. And most mewers don't. Most mewers are lying to themselves about the amount of time they do this for. I had a girl in the other day, and I mean, 5 times I reminded her to keep her lips together. And she swore blind she'd changed. Oh, no, but you can count on me. I've changed. No, you haven't. And you would lead me into disaster if I treated you, because you're claiming you've changed and you haven't changed. So it's just hard to remember. But if you got Botoxed, you don't have to remember. It's there. So you have to use other muscles. If you have to use other muscles, then you are going to have to change. But I still think, well, that's still some way off as far as me going to do it. You know, if someone else jumps the gun, whatever. Yeah, you know, I don't need to go home and own everything. I mean, it's really important for me that I don't own everything. Okay, you know, because it can't be. This isn't the Mike Mew show. This is a health revolution. Okay, it's not me. It's us. Okay. Right. I think that we've gone 16 minutes past, so I think it's about time we wrap that up. As I said, we'll put a notice out for. I want to do this more frequently, so store up your questions and even put questions in, because we will do this again, and then we're going to have this available, I believe, so you can go back through it. we'll put an advert out amongst the Patreon for people who want to help me help test the Mewing app, and that will literally be in the next few weeks. And again, it's something that I want to offer to my Patreons first. I will probably I'll probably advertise elsewhere, but be a bit more selective. If you're a member of my Patreon and you want to do it, great. There we go. I want to give you advantages for being on Patreon, for helping me. I want to do this more frequently, and I'll give you the heads up that what we're also thinking of doing is organizing a Mewing conference. Well, it won't be called a Mewing conference, I think with some craniofacial foundation or the tropic premise, because Mewing is the tropic premise. So that I want to do. I would love to get something organized in August. So anyone here who wants to help, we've already got some people offering to help, but anyone else help is always fantastic. And I'm thinking of doing it in LA in August at some point. So fantastic. Listen, this is the first time I've done this. I'm certainly, it's not going to be the last, and I want to make it a relatively routine feature. I think all with preparation and everything. Today it's taken me 2 hours. Well, I think that's really good value for money, for helping you and for what we get in from Patreon. Guys, you've really been, I don't think you realize just how helpful you are, because when I've had those dark moments, and the dark moments are dark at times, and I'm not a depressive person. I'm a very positive person, but being tough. The odd message coming in from people, knowing money's coming in, because that means you care. Okay. Knowing that you're there and seeing the videos getting liked and the messages coming up, it really has helped. More than I think you can imagine. It's yeah, it really has helped. Thanks. No, I owe you. Yeah, thank you very much. All right. With that, I will bond you farewell, and I'm going to hit this button. Where is my mouse? There's always the finale when you're on Zoom. You go bye bye. What's right? I can do a bye bye. All right. Bye bye. Aha.